Okay, it's 6 p.m. Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Federal Monitor Team's 12th CAC meeting. We would like to welcome everyone on the committee to join us this evening virtually, and thank everyone who's joining us via the YouTube channel, live streamed or pre-recorded. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you all being here. We have a pretty full agenda and we're hoping to have a robust discussion on a lot of important issues that are affecting the residents in the NYCHA community. So first, I would like to turn it over to the Federal Monitor, Bart Schwartz, to open the meeting, please.
Thank you, Asha, and welcome to everyone. The CAC has been extraordinarily productive, and I had hoped that by this time we might be able to be sitting around a table with each other and greeting each other. Unfortunately, circumstances still make it necessary to have the virtual meetings. There are some advantages to the virtual meetings in that it's easier for more people to join, and I recognize that, but still it would be nice to see everyone, and I wish all of you well. I know that Asha has spoken to many committee members in the last few days in preparation for tonight's meeting, and that you all have some things to add and present to the group. I also want to let you know that many things have been going on with respect to the various plans and reorganization at NYCHA. And I really want to direct myself to those and to the nice progress that I believe we are making. I'm going to be a little repetitive because people still ask me about the plan we approved, which we haven't. They asked me about the plans we're not involved in, and I try to explain it, but I'm going to do it again because I really think it's important that you know who to talk to if you have a problem with a particular plan, and if it's one that we're involved in, then certainly you should bring those questions to us. So we're currently front and center in our work now is the implementation plan. And just to review, we originally had a transformation plan, and maybe the use of the word plan, maybe that's our fault. That makes it more confusing. But be that as it may, we had a transformation plan. Then we have an implementation plan, which is to make the goals of the transformation plan work with the resources available. And together, transformation and implementation equal the organizational plan that is in the HUD agreement. Not as a criticism, but just to draw the distinction, it has nothing to do with the blueprint. The blueprint is a NYCHA initiative. There may be overlap that NYCHA will have. They may adopt aspects of the organizational plan. In fact, I'm sure they will because they have it in mind. But the blueprint is not what we're about. We're about getting this organizational plan done. So how we do that is we're working with all the stakeholders. NYCHA has set up various work streams, which includes a resident roundtable, includes other work streams, so the residents have participation. We work closely.
Floretta, we're having a sound quality issue with Bart's line.
Yes, he's going to have to reconnect. It's on his end that it's frozen. We'll get him back on.
Okay, we'll pause for a moment and then let me just go over some of the evening's ground rules while we're waiting for Bart to reconnect. And our agenda for the evening, we're opening with Bart Schwartz, the Federal Monitor's opening statement, welcome, and some updates, including a key explanation about the distinction between the work that the Monitor's doing and the blueprint for change that NYCHA has been working on. Then we will hear from Deputy Federal Monitor Dan Barnell, who will give us an update on some more of the work that the Monitor's been doing. And one of our recent meetings, we host 3 types of meetings to engage with the resident community. One is this CAC meeting where we have members and stakeholders from different organizations throughout the city, different agencies, as well as residents who represent each of the boroughs. Another opportunity for engagement is the town hall meeting, where we've been focusing on an issue that the monitor team is focused on related to our pillar issues and the aggrievement, and giving a deep dive into what that means, what our work has been, what some of the challenges are, and how residents can get involved in those efforts. And then the third way is to have community meetings. We had been in the community having these meetings in real life, and we can't wait to get back to those, but we've been hosting them virtually. And in those meetings, we've been going to every borough. Each borough will be our VIPs for the evening, which means you get first shot at the microphone. And then we open it up to the rest of the attendees in the meeting. So our next meeting will be held in September. The Bronx residents will be our VIPs for the evening. All stakeholders are welcome and encouraged to participate in the discussion. For this conversation, it is a limited attendance list of just CAC members who each have a particular issue or statement or comment, but mostly we also encourage you to listen to one another and to ask each other questions and comments and give answers if you know them, so that we could have this be more of a virtual roundtable format, if you will. So with that, since Bart Schwartz is having some technical difficulties, I will ask that Dan Brunell please give an update.
Yeah, thanks, Asha. The only thing I want to talk about, and this is going to sound weird, especially because it's going to be in the 90s the next 3 days.
I got it.
About 2 weeks ago, we had a community meeting, a town hall meeting on the heat action plan, which was the very first of the action plans to be approved in December of 2019. For all of these town hall meetings on the action plans, we always and the plans, by the way, are all available both on NYCHA's website and on the Monitor website, and they're actually pretty readable. And for a resident, it's just pretty important to go and read. But we always focus the resident aspect of kind of the role that the residents play in these various pillar heating areas and pillar service areas. And with regard to heat, and again, again, it's in the summer and you're probably not thinking about it much, but the heating season starts October 1st and goes to the end of May. So in a few months, we'll be in the heating season again. And we know, because of the age of the heating equipment and other issues that, heat can be a real challenge for some residents, getting sufficient heat. And what's always critical, the most critical thing that a resident should do when they really feel that they're not getting enough heat in their apartment is call and make a complaint to the CCC. If no work order is open, then you have no reasonable expectation that anybody's going to show up or do anything. You have to call the CCC. And of course, mostly that's important to get a response and hopefully get the issue corrected. The other thing that it's really important for is it provides important information in NYCHA's main database, Maximo, which is really important. With all of the tens of thousands of units NYCHA has to heat over the winter, and somewhat limited staff, it's important to be able to kind of focus in on those units most likely to have the most severe issues and chronic issues with regard to not enough heat, and to fix those. So that's really critical. And the other thing to always do is to touch the radiators and touch the risers. Are you actually getting any heat? Even if it's a little heat. I'm not saying that's sufficient, but if you're getting no heat and it's a cold day, and most likely you should be getting heat, that provides important information to NYCHA to have a sense that there really is a heat issue in your particular unit. And of course, the third thing is, there are things that residents can do. One is to make sure windows are closed. And if they don't close properly or otherwise are malfunctioning so that there are drafts, that's important to notice. If you have window air conditioners, if you don't put some sort of a covering on them, that's a direct access to the outside. And even though we haven't had cold winters in the last couple of years, at some point, I'm sure we are going to have, some temperatures in the 20s and below. And those open air conditioners are really, a big access for cold weather. So that's all I want to say now. And we're going to, continue as we have. And Asha indicated there are various meetings we have in addition to the CAC, mentioned some of these things with regard to the pillar areas, just sort of as a reminder to residents that there are things, that they can do to really assist NYCHA in the better delivery of these services.
I'm back, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Sorry about that, but I was rejected each time I tried to get back in. So I'm going to shorten my statement in case something happens again. And I also don't want to delay the meeting. So overall, I'm not sure where I dropped off, but I think we got as far as explaining that the difference between that the blueprint is something different from the organizational plan, that we're working with NYCHA, the Southern District, and HUD all together to try to ensure that any differences we have about things are dealt with during this process, rather than at the end and then say, oh no, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with that. And I think that's working quite smoothly. There are lots of teams meeting on a regular basis, reporting back in, sharing draft chapters, and using that as a vehicle for talking to each other as well. And then the only other thing I want to say about it is, and I don't want to describe it too much, because I think it's really for Eva Trimble, who's here to describe it when she gets the chance or answer any questions. But part of the organizational plan, a critical part of it, is the neighborhood plan. And essentially that is really a description of trying to drive decision-making down to the neighborhood and closer to where the residents are and where the people who are impacted by the decisions get a chance to participate. And I won't describe it further than that, but but I think I've given you a fair description. So I'm going to end it there, because there's a lot to cover, and I don't want to take too much of the time. And I think I hit the highlights. So I look forward to the rest of the meeting. And I just want to say again how much I appreciate the effort of everyone and all those who've been on the committee and who've joined us, and some who've been off the committee now. The terrific work that has been done, and the substantive accomplishments that have been made. So thank you, and I'm going to stay on as long as I can. Asha, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for those opening remarks, Bart, and thank you, Dan, also for giving an update on heat and the work that the monitor team is doing in that regard. Next, we would like to turn to the New York Fire Department. We have two representatives on the line, and thank you both for being here. We have someone who's standing in, so if you could please introduce yourselves and just give us an update on from the training perspective for BCO Caro, and we also have Michael Kerwin on the line.
Thanks, Asha. This is Fabrizio. Apologies, I had to call in just because we're actually working right now on an incident that occurred today. But just wanted to update the committee ultimately on what we did over the last year. From the last meeting, I reported out that NYCHA resident engagement was working with the FDNY on a series of events of working with different tenant associations throughout the city, establishing a borough-wide meeting. Those events did occur where we did work primarily from a borough-based approach. Fortunately, it wasn't as well attended just due to the fact of it being digital on a digital platform. However, we are now revisiting approaching resident engagement again and seeing how we can bring back fire safety presentations on a development by development basis in a coordinated fashion, being that we are returning to in-person presentations, of course, following some level of social distancing guidelines. Furthermore, in terms of operations, throughout the recent months, there has been a spike in fires due to the result of lithium-ion batteries or devices that use lithium-ion batteries. In working with NYCHA's public safety team, we did provide content and safety materials specific to prevention and safety tips revolving around lithium-ion batteries and devices that utilize it, and how to properly dispose and store. We are aiming to have that translated in the top 10 languages and also developed into PSA to further that outreach as a result of the trend that we've seen growing throughout the city. Beyond that, again, the aim is to continue working to get the message out to NYCHA residents, and also utilizing or capitalizing on the fact that it is the beginning of the school year. We are working with the Department of Youth and Community Development, specifically through the Cornerstone programs that are located primarily within NYCHA developments, in developing or coordinating a back-to-school effort in which safety messaging will be enhanced. School supplies, working with NYPD and also with NYCHA, will be distributed to youth and families. Right now, the aim is to do it in over 20 developments throughout the city, of course, targeting each borough. And again, just to emphasize and strengthen safety messaging. That's all I have to report.
Thank you for those important updates. I'm glad to hear that the work is continuing. Okay, and we have one more representative from FDNY.
Hi, my name is Michael Kerwin, Deputy Chief in the Bureau of Fire Prevention. I'm here representing Deputy Assistant Chief Kevin Brennan in fire prevention. He filled me in a little bit on what's going on here. He stated that there was a question about firefighter procedures when there is a stuck occupied elevator. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the procedure is as far as the NYCHA facility goes, we generally will gain access via the front door. Most of the times that door is either open. We'll ring a few bells. There is a key fob that is available for those buildings. We generally will remove the stuck occupant via elevator keys. These are elevator keys that elevator mechanics use. We're issued all different types of keys. We try to get the stuck occupants out of the elevator without doing any physical damage to that elevator. That is our goal. We don't want to damage the elevator. We do shut power to the elevator first. We send a member up to the elevator machinery room, which is generally located in the roof. We'll shut off power for safety reasons. After we remove the occupant, we will leave power off because that elevator is considered a faulty elevator. We don't want any more occupants stuck in that elevator. When we leave the area, the fire company will contact the borough dispatcher, and we'll talk to one of our borough dispatchers, and we will request that the borough dispatcher contacts the housing authority, and we give them information regarding the address and the elevator car. So at that point, an FDNY dispatcher will reach out to, there's a few phone numbers depending on the area of the city. At that point, he doesn't really know the person who's actually talking to, if this is a person that's actually gonna dispatch an emergency crew. We don't get any kind of ETA on when it's gonna be fixed, but we do notify the housing authority that there is an elevator that is out of service and shut off in that building.
Asha, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Good. And I think there's a history here, which I think that Chief Brennan probably didn't share with you, or didn't have time to share with you. And I won't rehash it but a lot of it has to do with damage to elevators. But one thing you said to me is, I think it was a bit of a surprise. You said you notify NYCHA after you've dealt with the problem. Shouldn't there be a way to notify NYCHA immediately that there's an issue, because they may be able to help in getting the elevator back in service? I can tell you one of our team members was stuck in an elevator today. It took a little longer than we had hoped to get the person out, but both fire department and NYCHA were notified. Fire department was first to show up. They started taking care of it immediately. Got the person out. No damage. No one was hurt. But it would seem to me that you'd want NYCHA to know immediately, and NYCHA would want to know immediately if they've got an outage like that. So if the standard procedure is to tell them when you're done, I'd ask you to follow up, and we should follow up with you so that the standard procedure is NYCHA should tell you immediately, and I think you should tell NYCHA immediately, and NYCHA should tell you immediately when you've got an outage.
So we generally will first, we want to investigate the reported condition. Many times we get there on the scene and both elevators are working perfectly. There's no one stuck. So first we do want to investigate. And then most of the time when we have to remove an occupant, there's no damage done. We do shut power for safety reasons when we do want to remove that occupant. And we will not turn power back on. That's not our procedure to do that. We won't want the elevator checked. But that is something that I could bring up, that once we discover that there is an elevator that is not functioning properly, we could possibly make the notification sooner than after we've completed.
Yeah,
Sometimes it takes 5 minutes to get them out. Sometimes it takes an hour.
I don't want to get into a debate about it here. And the fire department has been terrific about things that we've raised in the CAC and getting the key fobs out and so forth. So don't. That's not the intent of this discussion. But we will follow up, because it just seems to me, as a matter of logic, both parties that have the interest should know about it as soon as possible. But I'll leave it at that.
You could,
Yeah,
what you could do is you could have the 911 dispatcher not only notify the fire department, you could have them notify NYCHA. That would get them notified a lot sooner.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
that's the solution.
Yeah. And Michael, if I can, this is Dan Brunell. On the monitor team, I probably am the one that works most closely with the elevator department. Would it be possible for me, not now, but I'll get it through Washington, your callback number? Because I think what would be really helpful, and again, I don't want to take time on this call, would be to have a conversation between, the couple heads of the elevator department and whoever the right people are in the fire department side, just to go make sure everybody's aware of each other's procedures and some of these sticking points. I think that's probably the best way to do that, which I think would be really useful.
Sure, certainly. We could certainly speak after this meeting.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. Well, this is really embodies exactly the point of the meeting, to bring up issues, to think through them together, and then to be able to follow up to find some solutions. So thank you guys for that, and thank you for the fire department for leading our discussion, and for being here, and thank you for filling in. Next, I wanted to turn to our NYPD representative, and we also have a fill-in. And we appreciate, we know that everyone's schedules are busy, so we really appreciate you stepping up to represent your respective agencies for this meeting tonight. So I'd like to welcome Captain Dennis Gray, please.
Good evening, all. It's a pleasure to be here. On behalf of Housing Bureau and Chief Barrera, he sends his regards. He actually gets to take vacation once in a while, so I'm filling in. I'm newly assigned over here, the XO of Housing Bronx, Queens. Got here about 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to present the housing crime numbers for across the city. If you have any questions, I'll be available afterwards to answer any questions you might have. The figures are current up until Sunday, August 8th. So I'll just go with the week to date. And when we report the numbers, it's based off of reported crimes. And those crimes, as they go by the FBI index, are murder, rape, robbery, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, and grand larceny auto. So those are the trackable crimes, felonies that the NYPD tracks. And we do the misdemeanors and other things, but those are the main ones that make this report. So for the week to date, 2021 versus 2020, the total reported crimes were 91 for 2021 versus 115 for 2020. So we're down 21% roughly. For the 28-day period, 2021 versus 2020, the numbers were 403 crimes for 2021 versus 418 crimes. So we're down 3.6%. For the 28-day period, we were high in grand larcenies, a 2.4% increase, which 86 versus 84. So we took 2 more grand larcenies this month than we did last year at this time. And unfortunately, we also had murder or homicides were also up by 20%. We had 6 for 2021 for the 28-day period versus 5 for in 2020. So up 1, and that's still a lot to me. When we look at the numbers year to date, we're at 3,139 crimes for 2021, all throughout the city in NYCHA developments or on NYCHA grounds, versus 3,001 for 2020, the same time last year. So we're up 138 crimes. And the class of the areas that we're up in are number 1, homicide / murder. We're at 52 versus 45, or a 15.6% increase. And that's 7 additional homicides for the year versus last year. The next category we're up in is felony assaults. We're at 1,448 reported felony assaults versus 1,365, or a 6.1% increase. And those felony assaults, that means we added an additional 3 this year, 83 this year. And the final 2 categories we're up in are grand larcenies, which we're at 735 for the year versus 618 for 2020, an 18.9% increase. And then for grand larceny autos, we're at 126 versus 103 for 2020. So we're up with that 23 grand larceny autos. Definitely COVID played in the numbers, but that's something that we're looking at, and the difference with the laws and the violence and everything like that. So some of that plays into it with the difference in numbers.
Asha, also a quick word on this as well, if I may. It's interesting to hear the numbers, although I think for this committee, we should find a way to shorten that presentation and talk more about substance. But I have 2 questions, and I'm not going to put you on the spot to answer them, but I'm very interested in. One is, it may not be an FBI reportable crime, but are you keeping records of gunshot incidents? And 2, it would be interesting to hear how the number of officers are deployed from place to place, depending upon the increase or decrease of conduct. So maybe that's something we can talk about offline to help with the presentation, because I don't know if the numbers sound, whatever the numbers are, we're all worried and we're all scared, and we need to convey information that helps people deal with this, helps them protect themselves, and get the city to do. I'm not blaming the police department, but in general, getting the city and NYCHA to do more when it comes to safety and security.
And to your point, I understand, and I'm sorry if the numbers sound alarming. I'm a stand-in, number 1, so I'm not sure.
No, I know. I'm not
used to. So no problem, and I understand the standpoint of where it's coming from. So to answer your questions, number 1, yes, we do track shooting incidents, and I can tell you that for the year, we're actually down in the amount of shooting incidents across housing for the entire city. We've had 159 for the year versus 169. So we're down 5.9%. And we're actually down in the amount of shooting victims too, because we do track that, and it's 177 this year versus 198 last year. So that's a 10.6% decrease. As far as your question of deployment and everything, and it's an interesting one. We've been arguing it. Yes, we need more cops. We need more cops. We need more cops in housing and everything like that. We have a program going right now that the commissioner, we've done it year after year. We call it All Out, where we take administrative cops from different commands, we band them together, and we'll put them in certain areas and things like that. So the manpower is distributed according to where we see the problems. Some of them are in the PSAs, some of them are in the precincts, and we deploy officers to these different locations based on where the crime is happening, what it is we're seeing, any upticks and everything like that. In certain cases, and depending on what the program is, we're able to move people around or different resources to where we're having spikes and hotspots or where things have occurred. And at other times, some of it is fixed because of the historical violence. So, I mean, it sounds daunting and everything, but it really, and I break down the numbers from week to month to year because we analyze it to that point where I'm constantly looking at facts and figures daily. My concentration is Bronx and Queens housing, whereas somebody might have Manhattan and things like that. So, and where I was actually recently a commanding officer for PSA 4 downtown Manhattan. So I was on top of those figures. So now I have to look at the figures differently, and definitely a lot more overwhelming up here in the Bronx and Queens, but at the same time, very manageable, more resources and everything like that. But yes, I love to work on the format and everything. But I also wanted to put out that along with these surges and different things that are going on, we also have programs where we're working with the youth. You have Cornerstone daily, where we actually have officers assigned to different locations, different centers where you have different sports programs and everything to deter youth from hanging out on the street and everything like that. So they're able to engage with the police officers and do different things. And then on the weekends, we have what we call Saturday Night Lights. Again, more engagement with the youth, and that's in conjunction with the DA's office and everything like that. All this stuff coming out of Chauncey Parker, community engagement and everything. So it's we're definitely out here and doing it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And then this Thursday, we're having a ribbon cutting ceremony for a basketball court that was refurbished with through NYCHA as well as the NBA and NYPD. That's going to be at Queensbridge at 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 12th. So,
Well, I was going to give you the same plug. I think everyone should know that Chauncey Parker, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Community Affairs, I've been working with him, and he's been working with NYCHA, and particularly the Capitol side of NYCHA, and they're refurbishing. It looks like it's going to be approximately 20 basketball courts that are finally done when the program is over. And this is a program which was started and generated and the idea of the NYPD. So I thank you for that.
no
Great,
problem.
thank you so much, Captain Gray. And does anyone else have any questions for the fire department or the police department? Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you all for being with us this evening. And now I'd like to turn to DIFTA. We have Representative Agnes Mack with us, who has a much lighter presentation and update. And we also have some pictures. Floretta, if you could put that up at the appropriate point in her presentation. Agnes, please proceed.
Hi, good evening, everyone. The Department for the Aging is happy to report that a lot of our senior centers have reopened in the last month. As of yesterday, we have 282 senior centers that have reopened with 25% capacity for in-person activities and services. There are 2 more that are scheduled to reopen for tomorrow, 4 to be determined due to facility issues. And if those 4 sites have resolved their facility issues, that will bring our total numbers to 288 senior centers. Very exciting. As senior centers reopened, they have also restarted congregate meal service and or grab and go meal service. In the last week, we provided 73,119 meals, and that's a daily of 10,446 meals provided, with a daily average of serving 9,166 older adults. So we are very happy about that. The next thing that I would like to report is fresh off the press today, which is our pot gardening project. This is a project that is funded by New York State and some federal fundings to provide nutrition education workshops and activities to older adults. The Department for the Aging has been receiving this yearly grant for 4 years now. And last year during the pandemic, in addition to providing to nutrition education workshops, we also launched a pot gardening project where we will give a plant, and typically an herbal plant, to seniors to grow at home. The idea will be to help them alleviate social isolation, because with growing, they will, in addition to receiving a plant, they will also be participating in conference calls and virtual meetings to learn how to grow the plant, and also how to use the plant for cooking and eating, for healthy cooking and eating. Last year, we provided 550 plants to seniors. This year, we have expanded the program, and we will be providing 1,200 plants to seniors at 16 different NYCHA locations. So we distributed the first round of plants today to some seniors. This year, we are giving away basils, parsleys, and cilantros, all good for cooking or salad, fresh eating. Tomorrow, we will have another round of plant delivery and distribution to the seniors. And starting next week, we will start our virtual meetings with the seniors to learn how to grow the plant and use the plant. So this is always a very exciting event. The seniors always receive the plants with big smile, and I have a few pictures to show. I have other pictures that may be coming in, but they didn't make it in quick enough for this meeting. Wow, this is beautiful. Thank you. So here are 3 pictures of seniors who received the plants. The original idea was for the seniors to receive seedlings, meaning small plants that they can grow at home. But as it turned out, we ordered the plants through Grow NYC, which has a gardening center or a nursery in Gulf Innes Island. So when we ordered the plants about a month and a half ago, I think they started the seeds. And as it turned out, we have had very good weather, and the plants thrive and grow. And as you can see, it has grown to a big plant. So if the seniors want to start cutting off some of the plant to cook and eat it, they will be able to do it and continue to grow it at home. So it's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes, for that great update and the great work that DIFT is doing with the seniors. I love that the plant project has grown so much, and I'm a big fan of basil, cilantro. So I would love that, to have a fresh plant for my food. That's wonderful. So next we wanted to turn to our NYCHA representatives. We have Eva Trimble, Nancy Ortiz, and Ms. Gina Watkins on the line. And Eva, if you can present first, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Asha, for this opportunity to present tonight. I'll keep my remarks really short. I wanted to just give a brief update on our resident roundtable work. We kicked off the resident roundtable in June with 32 members. It's 30 members from public housing and 2 members from our Section 8 portfolio. And the members represent in public housing, one for each neighborhood that we've organized around. It's an amazing group of residents who are really excited to share what they know and share with residents and really work with us as partners in developing the implementation of the transformation plan. This week, we're very pleased that the residents have self-selected into 4 different subcommittees. And this subcommittee work is going to be entirely led by the residents. So they are setting the agendas, they are setting the discussion topics. We here at NYCHA are here to help them and support them. We're basically staffing these committees for them, helping to bring subject matter experts to the table for them based on what they want to talk about. The 4 subcommittees are quality assurance, quality of life, management practices and development welfare, and safety and security. They've come up with those names on their own. And like I said, they're focusing on their topics on their own. So far, we've kicked off 3 of those, or 3 or 4 of those subcommittees. I think we have 1 more kicking off tomorrow. And like I said, it's about 8 or 9 residents per subcommittee. And so far we've had representations from the NYCHA subject matter experts on that as kind of an initial kickoff. But we're already talking about scheduling site visits and tours. For example, on safety and security, the residents talked about the tremendous efforts at Stuyvesant Town to do safety and security there. And they want to set up a site visit there with the safety and security team at Stuytown. So that's just an example of how we're here to help support the residents in what they're looking to explore. The goal here is that the residents would then provide NYCHA with recommendations on what they want to see as far as the change that they want us to implement. And we'll continue working with the subcommittees over the next year with hopes that in the June 2022 implementation plan, we'll be able to commit to certain recommendations and get those started. So we're very excited to work with them. It's, like I said, a great group of residents who are really engaged. In addition, they are working with us on the work streams of our project teams that Bart mentioned earlier, but they themselves are taking on their own efforts, and we look forward to getting recommendations and ideas back from the residents and working together to implement some of them.
Thank you for that important update, Eva.
You're welcome.
The opportunity to sit on one of those meetings, and it really was a robust discussion from the residents from all over the city, committed to really making good recommendations. I know that they're going to hold your feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions about that program? Okay. Nancy Ortiz?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. How is everybody? Can you hear me?
Good. Good evening. We can hear you.
Okay. So Captain Gray touched on the safety and security issues, and during the resident roundtable and during other meetings, the safety and security issue has been prevalent in conversation. It's been a very hot topic, especially over the summer. Several developments are concerned about an uptick in their developments on robberies, assaults, and especially the shootings. So we're really looking at the numbers to see where the real hotspots are, to see what we can do with the NYPD and the PSA, to see how we can kind of like add a little bit more lighting to the areas if needed. The scaffolding is the issue. How will we address that to get the scaffolding down or get better lighting in the scaffolding areas? That's basically what conversations have been.
Thank you for that update, Nancy. And Nancy, is there any, I know you've been looking at the lease recertification process, and that they were rolling out some changes there. How has that been going?
Oh, we're getting a lot of positive reviews on it. People are liking it. The seniors are loving it because they said the letters are bigger and now they don't have to start all over again when they log out. So this was a win-win for us. thus far.
Okay, that's good to hear. And Ms. Watkins, I know you lead the effort. Dinner Night is resident engagement, working closely with the resident associations on the election process. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Absolutely. Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Great, great. Good to see you guys. So yes, we have been tackling the elections. We actually have about maybe 200 by end year that is actually expired. And we are, we jumped in to try to get some kind of a handle on it and tackle 36 of the outstanding unrepresented resident associations. So we started that process in June, where we had a general meeting. We had we categorized it by month, where we did Manhattan and Queens on that Monday for the first meeting, and then we did the Bronx on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we did Brooklyn. So we started with the general meeting, which was the information meeting, describing what the process looked like and what was going to take place within the next 60 days. Then we had nominations in July. We had nominations for through boroughs, but we did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each borough, we had multiple interpreters to accommodate residents at each locations where those additional languages were needed. So we're now at the election time, which is going to take place at the end of the month. I think it's the 24th and the 26th. Yeah, so we won't be having any elections in the Bronx. That wasn't too successful, unfortunately. And we will be hosting elections for Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn the week of the 24th in August. We are looking to try to tackle some, of the outstanding ones going forward, as resident leaders accept our invitation to participate in the election process, where we would, conduct the whole process. It's a lot. It's a lot going on, but we are working diligently to get those resident associations in place so that they will be there to be able to advocate for the residents, as the residents do have a voice. So that's currently where we at with the elections. Putting everything together. We currently have 5 that's going to take place. So I think six. I think we have 4 in Manhattan, 1 in Queens, and 1 in Brooklyn that we will be tackling by the end of the month.
That's good to hear, because like you said, it's so important for residents to have their voice. And I know that the resident leaders really do a lot of work in terms of advocating for residents and information sharing, et cetera. So it's critical. Thank you for that update. Does anyone have any questions for our NYCHA representatives about anything that you just heard? Comments? Okay, so we will now move on to our CCOP representative, the Citywide Council of Presidents. We have Lilith Lozano. Ms. Lozano, can you please update us on the work that CCOP is doing? Please.
Yes, good evening. I'm just having some technical, I had to use the earplugs. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you, sound good.
Okay. We've been really, really busy. We're tackling the rat, which is a very big problem. I'm tirelessly getting all over the city calls on the contractors that run cooperative, the implementation and the transformation plan, whatever you want to call it. They're arbitrarily covering certain things. For instance, in one of the developments that I mentioned to you, Ethel Velez's development, which is Johnson Houses, she has some contractors there. They detected mold, and they decided to paint over the stairwells. Then they wanted to block some of the entrances when it came to doing the boilers. Anytime she asks us a question, it's a problem. with community development. I'm encouraging all the resident leaders, don't sit down and speak tonight your community development, because they tell us one thing, and I'm in the conversation with the resident leader. And then today was brought to my attention, two of the developments, they spoke to the residents there, and now they're misinformed. You know, a prime example, Washington Heights, where they're part of RAD, and the contractor consequently underhandedly was working with the private developer that took over the property. And it was detected that there was a black toxic molding in the sheetrock that they covered the actual moldings. So I sent it to the federal monitor, Daniel Sherrod, because I've been instructed to report to him and let him know what I'm reporting to you, as well as the resident leaders. You know, it's really difficult because of the pandemic and the Zoom. Sometimes we go through technical terms, but CCAP, we're in the final stages of reaching an agreement, because we have to, or else we would be at point of being shipped out of recognition, and we can't let that happen as well. But I still, you know, our recommendation is that we need a thorough investigation on exactly how they've already done, you know, the actual RAD conversions in the places that they have done, and request a halt immediately on RAD. We need to request a halt on it, because, you know, to cover it with sheetrock, that's only a nightmare waiting to happen, because those residents are going to be affected if you hide it. Do you know that I went to one development where they covered the mold, and it looks like, the only way I could describe it, it looks like mushrooms growing through the wall. I didn't even know that a wall could actually, it looks like it's moving because there's bacteria inside those walls. And I keep tidily saying, as long as we've been talking about RAD, that this is just a Band-Aid. And, you know, the mere fact that Russ is continuously making it his business to hire consultants to go into these developments to try to push this blueprint, we're not supporting it. It shouldn't happen. But a halt or an investigation thoroughly of what they've already done in these RAD conversions, because of what's happened in Washington Heights. And they did some investigation, found out there was some underhanded things going on, and those contractors were they were accounted for their improprieties. What's not to say right now that we are experiencing or potential unethical practices by these people? Because it seems like it's just to meet the agenda, and that's not going to work for the residents in public housing. You know, we really need to investigate that, and I'm looking forward for Bart to once again ask about that. We can move forward, and I sound like a broken record, and I know that I do. We can't even think about getting any type of monies if we don't know where the monies have gone because of all the improprieties within the last couple of administrations. And that's questionable. We need to, you know, start finding out. But soon the resident leaders and the resident associations will find out exactly the finalization of the memorandum of agreement, and understanding, as well as the bylaws, which is actually going to be governed by CCAP. So just keep, everyone that's on this call, keep your fingers crossed, because we are really working tirelessly trying to get it done.
If I may, Asha.
Please.
Yeah, especially, thank you, Ms. Lozano. I especially wanted to comment on Washington Heights. That is something where our field people developed good relationships with workers who had knowledge of the wrongdoing, and they shared that information with us. We too went to Sherrod, and we did that because it was a health issue. So we wanted it to get immediate attention. And also what complicated it was that they were 2 days away from the turnover to the developer. So it became very, very complicated, but safety was more important than the other issues. We then shared, because it was a safety issue, we then shared the information with NYCHA as to what was going on. And NYCHA's compliance team and some other teams did a joint inquiry with us to see what was going on. We reported it back to HUD and to the Southern District. And indeed, there were serious problems. They didn't use the right materials. They painted over and covered up, and there was drop ceilings. So if the mold was in the upper ceiling, they just fixed the dropped part. It was bad. That led to the Baez people going back to the court. That is still going on. And unfortunately, Judge Pauly passed away, so that's assigned to a new judge. But it is an example, at least, of once we found out what was going on, something was done. So the more you tell us about these things, the more we can do about it. But I also want to emphasize that once NYCHA learned about it, this is not an example of NYCHA management being involved in something that was wrong. They were part of the solution to figure out what was going on and to fix it and to work along with us fixing it. But there's more to come. I don't know. I know people think there's a pattern that these things happen, particularly where there's going to be a RAD or PACT, because they could just pass the problem on to somebody else, and that somebody else may not do anything about it. But I think within the litigation that's going on, there may be some resolution and determination of who's responsible for what, and does that responsibility continue once there's a turnover to the developer? But Washington Heights has really brought that to a fore. But I don't want to limit it to RAD and PACT. Those kinds of issues can happen anywhere. And
I agree, Bart. But not only to cut you off, we are going to revisit to going back to court, because we can't continue to take risk. And I know through my own life experience with dealing with NYCHA, I've had to unprecedented say no to certain contractors because, NYCHA didn't do their job when it came out to finding out violations and other properties. And I'm kind of getting into that realm where, I don't trust NYCHA. I'm sorry to say, I don't trust them. And I think that they're passing the buck. And I really think, like we shared a conversation, that we really need to put them under scrutiny to find out financially where we need to go, so we don't go through this, because we can't afford any more. We can't afford to lose affordable housing. Yeah. We can't afford it because it's for the poor.
Yeah, I'll make one last point, which is similar to a point that you made. It wasn't intended to be this way, but I think the HUD agreement is a good test to see, can I just spend the money effectively, efficiently, fairly? If they want to get all this money from wherever it's going to come from, the federal government or elsewhere, the NYCHA agreement is a good test to see if they can get things done.
Agreed.
Good point. Thank you, Ms. Lozano, for those important points and the work that CAC is doing. We really appreciate you being here as a representative. Next, I wanted to turn to Resident Representative Shakina Butler, who wanted to talk about an issue that's pervasive throughout NYCHA, which is the pest. Ms. Butler?
Good evening, everyone. You guys can hear me? So, what's right? We have an issue a couple of weeks ago, rats, something that I thought was being treated. So happened to have one basically run at me. I tried to jump over him, and messed up my foot in the process. I called the office immediately, and they said that they would send the exterminators who were on the development ground at the time. No one showed up that day. They said they were coming the following week. I don't know if they treated the area yet. I kind of try to avoid going into my office from the front door as much as possible because I'm afraid of them. Which leads me to the new little sections that they've placed in front of certain buildings. Normally the garbage is being thrown on the right side of the buildings as you come out. They made these sections in the grass that has like a cemented ground and a barrier that basically is put there to block you from seeing the garbage from the street level. Whereas when you're coming out of the building, now you have these humongous flies. And if I seen a rat not even 100 feet from me, what else is going to come out here? So I have an issue with that. I had a meeting with the superintendent and I asked her to place a receptacle there, something that can close down that prevents rodents and pests and stuff like that. And the comment was, well, I don't want people to throw garbage there. If that's something that's happening anyway, and it's been happening for years, why not just put a receptacle there? Stop relying on the residents to go all the way to the back parking lot. Whereas you've got residents that are seniors that live in the buildings more closer to the corner that will have to come through the development all the way to the back of the buildings to throw out garbage. It's not happening. Now we're seeing more and more garbage in front of the buildings. And it would take these guys as one person driving the truck. It would take him literally hours to keep going back and forth picking up garbage. It doesn't make any sense. If this is not working, let's find another solution because I don't want to be running from rats and hurting myself again. I don't want a senior because my office area is located where the seniors are. What if a senior had been out at the time and saw that happening? Like, that was just an issue for me. My next issue is Lilith, I know this is something that's near and dear to you. So the CAC program. I got a phone call from Leroy Williams and Simon Kowalski. And I said, come out and we'll have a discussion. Let's see what you guys are talking about. And I invited some of the residents out. And as you said, they were very confused. And I said, you know what? You guys want to keep coming back out? Because he's like, well, if you guys don't take it, we'll go somewhere else. That's what you want to do, then that's what you do. But if you want to come back and talk to the residents, by all means, have a conversation with them and let them know what you're doing, because I'm quite confused on different things with them as well. I've been in meetings, I've been on RAP meetings forever. And it's when you come to us with different things. So it started off as one building, let us put a building there. And then it turned into, oh, we can fix this, and then we can fix that, and we can fix this. It's like, be straightforward, be truthful, be honest, and let us know what you're actually doing and what you're trying to do. I don't like to go around and making me believe one thing and you're doing another, bottom line. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Ms. Butler, because you hit on a number of important points. The first, with regard to the pest and waste issue, it really comes down to, why is there so much trash being placed in front of the buildings? And like when I grew up, we used to call it incinerators or the hoppers or the compactors, all of those different things. But in a lot of the buildings, they're just too small for the modern garbage bag. And so since they don't fit, it's just easier to just bring it down and then people leave it right in front. Even though there's protocol to go put it behind the building, et cetera, that's much more difficult. So knowing what common practices are and the reasons, hopefully there could be solutions every step of the way, making larger doors, having receptacles that are more easily located that can have, some type of close mechanism so that they don't attract the rats and the insects and so forth. So thanks for talking about a lot of those.
Asha, while Ms. Butler was speaking, I forwarded her information to Chuck Fax, who on the monitor team oversees both pests and garbage, because obviously they're connected.
Right.
And now NYCHA has seen that, and they connect the two as well. Mr. Fax will reach out to you, get some more information, and follow up. So we'll follow up for you and with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Schwartz. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you. And you hit another important point with regards to transparent and clear communication with residents on important issues that might affect their development and the future of their development. So thank you for highlighting that important issue as well, Ms. Butler. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on those 2 points?
Yes, Mr. Gross.
Please proceed, Mr. Gross.
So since Mind Development went to the PEC program, the number one issue is professional communication and be clear on topics. So when a lot of times NYCHA is coming to our development, you gotta mix information. A lot of tenants even unable to understand. So my policy with NYCHA is number one, everything has to be on a document, black and white, in English, in Spanish. Every single resident from that development should be able to understand. First, you have to start with documents, not just talking. Give documents. Let's have every single resident read it, and we'll have a meeting, and every single resident should have the opportunity to comment or ask questions. This is the number one. This should be the number one when we start the conversation with PEC and RED.
It's a really good point, Mr. Gross. Thank you for that. Okay, so now I wanted to turn to Mr. Manny Martinez, who's our Queens representative. Manny?
Good evening. How's everybody doing? First, I want to say my apologies. I was just having a little technical difficulties coming on. What I wanted to bring attention to is the Section 3 and the enforcement of compliance of Section 3. Currently, I'm having this experience firsthand. We have a combined value of $43 million in roofing contracts exclusive to South Jamaica houses. So those are two different contracts. And they have only offered 9 jobs, no training. When I met with the compliance department for Section 3, and this was 2 meetings that we had on bi-weekly meetings, they could not answer certain questions. For example, this particular project is under the old policy of Section 3, Part 135. The contracts were signed prior to the new policy of Part 75, which came into play in November of last year. So on this particular project, this Section 3 accounts for what mandates for 10% of Section 3 business concerns, 10% of the contract value being given to Section 3 business concerns, 30% of newly generated hires. And also there's a training mandate. Now the training mandate does not change between Part 135 and Part 75. So training is to be expected with the project, and being that Section 3 is a contract specific mandate, we're supposed to be ensuring that training is specific to the contract. So if it's a roofing contract, it should be roofing training, or bricklaying training. If it's a painting contract, it should be painting training, so on and so forth. What NYCHA has done throughout the last decade was, or more, was they leaned on general training that they put out quarterly, or that REIS, the Resident Empowerment and Economic Sustainability Department, that their third-party training to account for the training portion of the contract. And that is suspect because now it looks like the recipient, the housing authority, is now being complicit to contractors' violations of their mandates under Section 3. Now we have no training. They've only hired 1 person. They've only offered 9 jobs collectively between both contracts. One of the contractors has no Section 3 business concerns that is on premise. There's supposed to be a notice put out throughout the work site that specifies Section 3 preference, how many jobs being hired, what's called for the jobs, how many training positions. REIS has assisted in waiving that. Right now, mind you, REIS has admitted to me that they have no compliance in regards to Section 3. But when Section 3 is brought up, REIS is always referred to. They have put up a flyer that has no mention of Section 3 or no specificity to what the clause suggests. we need a strong look, because we're talking about 2019, the agreement came into place January 2019, we're in 2021, the compliance departments have been established, and this is still a prominent issue. We also have to look at the value of Section 3. The New York City Comptroller had identified that from 2010 to 2020, January 1st, 2010 to January 1st, 2020, NYCHA had issued $19.8 billion in contracts. Now, granted, let's say that not all of that went to Section 3 contracts. Some of it goes to material purchases or consultations, which may not be Section 3. Material purchases are not Section 3. So if we could take $5 billion off of that just over the last decade, and knowing that NYCHA has not engaged in Section 3 business concern contracting, just that part alone, then the residents of NYCHA, the families of NYCHA, had lost $1.5 billion over the last 10 years with regards to enterprising and contracting with businesses that will contract with that would engage our community. That's significant. When you look at the statement that Chief Barrera had made, who is the NYPD PSA chief, he stated that you are 4 times more likely to get shot in NYCHA, in a NYCHA development, than anywhere else on the city. Just this fraction of loss, economic loss to our communities, this is why you are 4 times more likely. And I would say, I'm surprised that that number isn't higher. This is something that needs to be rectified. We also have to look at no contract bidding, that from 2014 to 2019, contracts under $5,000 totaled over $250 million. Under the 135 Section 3 policy, there was no economic threshold to Section 3, to the contract value, which means that if a contract was a penny, then it would be Section 3. There's another $250 million in contracting that we lost, that our communities had lost. We have lost billions of dollars under Section 3 just in NYCHA alone. Now, mind you, Section 3 goes throughout the state in multiple levels, HPD, Section 3, HC, the state, I forgot, HCRC. So forgive me on that, but the state version of the housing enforcement, all of this pertains to Section 3. Just in housing alone, we've lost billions. The other thing is we need to also engage in accountability. This has been a theme of mine. The accountability.
Wait, I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez, before you move on to the next point, I just wanted to take a moment to open the floor. Did anyone have any comments on the Section 3 compliance concerns that Mr. Martinez just raised? Okay. Okay, let's move on, please, Mr. Martinez.
No problem. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I know I gave a mouthful there. The accountability portion. So when we look, when there was provided from the consultant, the management overhaul, I guess, accountability was not a part of that. And we have to recall that in the complaint that the Southern District of New York put in, they highlighted that there was suggestions on how to deceive HUD within the official training manual. This is definitely an impact on the workplace culture and the workplace mindset. Nowhere in that, well, to my reading, and it's a lot of reading, but I have looked through a lot of the report, I do not see anywhere or any kind of strategy or plan that would deter that type of workplace culture and mindset. And this is something that we are daily, that's one of our challenges that we have daily as we live on local developments throughout NYCHA, is this type of mismanagement, this type of neglect. Recently here, there was trash left over for 7 days, and no one in NYCHA addressed it. Something like that. My first question is, was the property manager didn't walk it for 7 days? The super didn't walk it for 7 days, right? So we're looking at not only a staffing issue. We don't have enough staff or managerial staff, but 7 days would be enough for somebody to walk the development and say, this is a problem. If I had not made that report, that might have been there for another 7 days. So accountability is an issue that has not been addressed in the consultation, in the reorganization of NYCHA's consultant plan. Thirdly, knowing that NYCHA does engage in temp in hiring through temp agencies. We need to be able to engage residents who want to take the property that they live on and want to engage that property. We should be able to form blitz with residents using temp agencies. We can find a strategy in which those residents who will be looking to, clean up their stair halls, clean up their areas, and allow the local management or the borough management to engage.
Okay, I think we just hit a technical glitch with Mr. Martinez, but he made 3 important points with regard to Section 3 compliance, accountability for management, and also using resident resources for temporary hires, all really good points. So I think he was finishing up, and I wanted to turn to Mr. Gross, our Brooklyn representative, please.
Good evening. I would like to thank Mr. Schwartz on behalf of the Brooklyn NYCHA residents and his team. They feel a huge difference since the federal monitor step in, and with NYCHA, we all see changes on the NYCHA grounds in every development. My topics will be discussing safety, security, and health throughout the NYCHA developments. Is that one of the topics a lot of tenants is asking? Number one, if NYCHA is enforcing the no smoking policy, what we all know, hot requirements right now, we unable to smoke in any NYCHA development and outside 25 feet from our buildings. The real question, what a lot of residents consider right now, as New York is legalizing marijuana, is marijuana will be the same as a regular cigarette or not? Is a question what a lot of NYCHA residents is waiting. NYCHA should update, sending out policies, or maybe it's already policies, but we should send it out to all the residents. They should be aware of. A lot of residents is very afraid on the secondhand marijuana. In a lot of seniors have respiratory problems, and they would like to know the policy from NYCHA. And
Let me
again,
pause for a second. I actually will ask that question to Eva. Is there a policy already with regard to marijuana smoke in the development? And then later.
Yeah, right now our approach is enforcing it as if it was cigarette smoke. So the same rules apply for both cigarette or marijuana smoke. So the same enforcement will apply. It's covered under that procedure.
So the only question is if we have like a flyer, like NYCHA, the NYCHA was having for plain cigarettes, notifying the residents. We don't want like we don't want our residents to be like in jeopardy. They will say then NYCHA never notified them. It's just like the police was doing a field report or a staff member. I think it's fair. We should have a mailing to all NYCHA residents and notifying the residents. That's number one. The same, a lot of residents is very concerned about the pet policy, the no enforcement on the pet policy. Later on in NYCHA, a lot of illegal dogs above the 25 pounds, pit bulls, German Shepherd. As the last 2-3 years, we have multiple incidents with NYCHA employees getting attacked and residents. And now with all the senior population walking slow with wheelchairs, is a lot of seniors getting attacked. And according to residents, NYCHA is not enforcing the pet policy. Every single month, you see different tenants brings in the illegal dogs in front of the management office, in front of the NYCHA employees, and according to residents, no enforcement is there, even when they're going directly to the management and explain the dangerous loose dogs without a leash, and no enforcement the last couple of years, as we acknowledged. Maybe a letter, and that's it. On behalf of the residents, they would like NYCHA should start more with enforcement on the pet policy. Would like to go to the next topic. This is a question to Eva directly. If we came up with a plan about broken front door, lobby doors, and locks, windows and locks. And we have right now policy with the emergency management to, if a call came in even today, we have a department to respond immediately or within 24 hours to fix the glass, to fix the door lock, so the building is more safe.
We can certainly discuss further offline. If you're talking about your property specifically, since it's been transferred, we should bring in the new property manager to discuss that.
I'm talking citywide.
Okay.
And one more topic, I think we should look into it right now. If we in the heat season, first of all, number one, all the exhaust from all the elevators should work citywide with NYCHA, as well. A lot of lobbies, a lot of senior citizens, when they walk into the lobby waiting for the elevator 3 to 5, 6 minutes, a lot of times the senior is feeling like they're unable to breathe. There's no air in the lobby. I think is right now with the COVID is really a safety health hazard. And I think we should look in if it's possible to put like exhaust system in the lobby only where it's necessary. So this is for the health for the senior citizen and for the COVID-19 also as well. With that, I will finish.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. You really hit upon a number of really important quality of life issues that we've been hearing repeated throughout the developments, talking about the illegal dogs, the need for increased ventilation in the lobbies, the broken doors, and the time that it takes to get those fixed, and the marijuana and the smoking issue and the enforcement for what's supposed to be a smoke-free NYCHA. So thank you for highlighting those important issues. Before we move on, did anyone else want to comment on those or any other pervasive quality of life issues? Okay, thank you. And now I'd like to turn to Mr. Hall, who wanted to talk about the TPA fund process.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. First of all, and I just want to throw this out there because we were talking about the quality of life and the smoking, and I happen to be on the lease enforcement. So Eva, that conversation happened to come up this morning, and I'll just throw that out there. It's something that we have to look at because of the fact that you have a no smoking policy that cannot be enforced by the police because they haven't been trained to do it. The question is, how are we going to go forward? It's an issue, and we're trying to figure out how important that issue is compared to other issues such as the dogs and quality of life. And how do we get people from throwing things out of windows and our garbage and pests? So we're discussing all of that, and there will be some changes. However, they're not going to be easy. All right. More transparency is going to be needed, and you're probably going to have more residents to engage on floor-to-floor basis to be successful in whatever plan that's manipulated and created, because it's urgently essential. All right. Now, I want to go back to this PAC program and RAD program that's in existence. And I guess I'm appealing for the help of Dan and Bart Swartz, because I know Judge Pauly has left us, but the fact of the matter is the creativity of this federal monitor was based on a lawsuit, and it dealt with lead and mold. And I understand that. But now we're being squeezed by both ends. And this is what I mean when I say both ends. Number one, we have 2.0, where we have a group of real estate department folks running around taking housing developments and pawning them off to non-for-profits. On the other end, we're being squeezed because we're dealing with this blueprint for change. All right. And I just spoke to Greg Russ on the rooftop of Gun Hill Houses, because everybody showed up this past Friday. all right? Senator Jamal Bowman, Congressman Jamal Bowman, Senator Jamal Bailey. We had everybody there. And we had this flagrant conversation, all right? That's still to be continued. But the problem is this: the residents have no idea of what is going on, which Ms. Butler has alluded to, all right? They haven't been spoken to for over a year. And now we're gonna subsequently have this change where we're gonna have people come around and ask questions in the best interest of where we're going. It's a little too much, all right? It really is. And you need to allow more time, okay? Ms. Trimble mentioned about the subcommittees coming around. It's a good idea, but it's the wrong time. The reason I'm saying that, TA presidents are inundated with having to come up with family days, and you have no idea how rigorous that is. All right, just to get TPA funding it's a step. It's a lot of work, And I always said this, when it comes to TPA, all right, that was distributed way back, 2003. NYCHA took that money and used it. They used it for something called a drug elimination program. And at that time, they had a group called Community Operations. And they paid their residents with that. Now we got resident engagement, all right? And what they're doing is telling us what we need to do with our money. And I feel that that's totally wrong. I really do, all right? I don't want to sit here and throw anyone under the bus. I was told a lot of folks don't know anything about TPA from 2006 and earlier, okay? And I mean, I have factual data on what these developments had in Bronx North since 2003, all right? So I always ask for a forensic audit, and that's gone by the wayside. I believe Ms. Lozano has done that on a CCOP level, but she's in charge of, all of the monies. She's the treasurer. That too has gone by the wayside, all right? You just heard Manny Martinez tell you about accountability, all right? This is going on in many areas, all right? And at this point, we need assistance. We need assistance in order to endure what is in the best interest of the residents. That's what's urgently needed, okay? NYCHA, on the other hand, is now fooling around with the HUD 964 rules. They want to change that. And they have proposals. These are things that we have to look at, and we have to realize what's in the best interest of the residents today, all right? There is no more unification or any agency that can sit down and represent the residents. So here we are, federal monitor, and I hate to put this on you, Mr. Swartz, but when I hear these things, and I've been here, and I was very fortunate to be selected by the federal monitor, and I greatly appreciate it, but I sit down and I say, well, who are we going to turn to? All right, this is who I am. This is where I'm able to flow and discuss the needs in the best interest of where I live. So once again, I'm asking for your assistance with regards to what NYCHA is doing or trying to do as it lends itself to the rules and regulations pertaining to the 964s, which that's something that's just started, okay? But whatever assistance you can render, I would greatly appreciate it. It's really helpful because I have to spend the rest of my time trying to educate residents on PACT and RAD, all right? The chair actually came into Gun Hill, and folks think the place is sold, okay? They think it's sold because they're afraid. I'm the only development in the Northeast Bronx that has not fallen under PAC. So right away, when they seen everybody marching around, they thought we were sold. But this is very frightening, okay? And another thing is this. If you don't keep public housing public and you don't have low income, low and very low income, this is a catastrophe for disaster because we already have homeless people living in our staircase right this moment, okay? Where are they gonna go if you've pawned off your developments for other agencies that they're already taken? You took the second largest housing development and you gave it to a non-for-profit. Now, what does that do for a homeless person? They have their own list to bring independent residents in. So what happens to the NYCHA list? Where are residents going to go to accrue housing? And this is a magnificent problem.
Thank you, Mr. Hall, for raising this really important point. I'm going to turn to Bart to comment and to close out our meeting and thank everyone for participating in this robust discussion. Before you finish, Bart, I just want to say for housekeeping that we will have on September 14th, our Bronx community meeting, and on October 12th, we'll have our next CAC meeting. Bart, please close us out.
Sure, thank you. First, I want to say that we're glad that you're on this committee as well, Mr. Hall. You've been a terrific contributor and supporter, and we appreciate it. I do want to talk to you more about what you said, but I don't want to leave it at that. I want to understand when we talk more about 964 and how that is intersecting with some of the problems you're discussing, because to the extent there's an issue there, I think I could be helpful because that's a HUD issue, and I can talk to HUD. PAC and RAD, frankly, I'm not involved in that in terms of the decisions that are made there. Where my focus is, Washington Heights is a perfect example. My focus is, if you're going to turn something over, you better turn it over in good condition or ensure that it is put in good condition by the developer. So I don't want to promise things that I can't do, but where I think we can be helpful, let's talk about that further, and we'll set up a meeting, and then before I go to HUD, I want to be better educated. So thank you. With that, unless anyone else wants to comment, I want to again express my appreciation to everyone who has contributed to these CAC meetings, to this one in particular. I think it's terrific that we get to substance, and we also get to some solutions, which is not always easy to do. So everyone, I wish you well. Please take care. We're still in difficult times. Take care of yourself. Be careful, and take care of your family members. Without saying good night and thank you.
Good night. Thank you.